Hey, have you heard? The Guardian published a list on their website just last Friday of the 15 greatest video game magazines ever in the UK. And I'd just like to say at this point how incredibly proud I am of the fact that I wrote for all 48 issues of the 16th best magazine ever. It's the only reason it's not on the list, right? Hello everyone, welcome to the Re-Review, the series where I get to replay and reassess games from my favourite gaming era. I'm Brian, also known as UK Gen Zoidberg, and when I started this series 2 years ago, it was a way to revisit all the games that I reviewed when I was a writer on magazines such as Games X and Amiga Action. As much as I've really enjoyed revisiting those memories, there was always going to be a time when I would run out of games to talk about. So starting today, I'm going to be dedicating one episode a month to other Amiga games, looking at what the critical consensus was for each and seeing what I think of the games in 2024. Don't worry though, I am still going to be covering the games that I reviewed in alternate videos. This is just a way to broaden the scope of the series and continue to share my love of Amiga games. The games that I'm going to cover are going to be voted for by VIP members right here on the channel. The game that I'm going to be talking about in this episode is Jaguar XJ220 from Core Design, a game which was the recipient of at least one fairly infamous review when it was released in 1992. As the 1980s became the 1990s, there were few software developers as prolific as Core Design. They were formed in Derby in 1988 by Jeremy Heath-Smith and several former employees of Gremlin Graphics. To the wider gaming world, they will forever be known as the developers of the Tomb Raider franchise. But to me, they made an instant impact almost straight away with one of their first games, Rick Dangerous. Throughout the Amiga years, Core dipped their toes into multiple genres. There were shooters such as Banshee, Warzone and Frenetic, adventure games like Corporation, Heimdall and Curse of Enchantia, which I covered on the re-review just last year, and of course there were lots of platform games, including some classics of the genre such as Chuck Rock and Bubba and Sticks. There was also whatever genre Monty Python's Flying Circus fits into. They only ever made one racing game though, and that's what we're here to talk about today. Following the success of Lotus Esprit Turbo Challenge, made by Magnetic Fields in 1990, which set new standards for Amiga racing games, every publisher under the sun was frantically trying to find games that they could make themselves. Fortunately, Core Design picked up the rights to the XJ220, a new £400,000 supercar from Jaguar, of which there were only 350 ever made. A huge marketing push was planned for the launch of the car in April 1992, including giveaways, the release of model cars, multiple coverage in the motorsports press, and, of course, this video game. Production of the game was undertaken by the same team who had received critical acclaim for the helicopter simulator Thunderhawk in 1991. This included programmer Sarah Jane Avery, whose fast, smooth, self-made 3D routine was deemed to be the perfect fit for Jaguar's rolling hills and sweeping curves. Before joining Core, Avery had previously worked at Imagitech Design making Combo Racer, and more recently has been a senior programmer at Frontier Developments on games such as Zoo Tycoon, Disneyland Adventures and Elite Dangerous. All of the game's graphics, including the cars and trackside sprites, were provided by artist Jason G, and the soundtrack consisted of a number of original compositions by Core regular Martin Everson. Everson's music can be heard in multiple Amiga titles including Wolfchild, Premiere and Chuck Rock. He would continue to work for Core for many years, providing music for multiple entries in the Tomb Raider franchise, Fighting Force 1 and 2, Project Eden and their final game, Free Running, in 2007. Jason G's career has seen him work as an artist for multiple companies, including Team 17, Rockstar and WayForward Technologies. Despite the success of the Amiga release, Jaguar XJ220 would only ever come out on one other system, Sega's Mega CD, in 1993. UK magazine CMVG, in their review, called the Sega version a bit of a letdown due to a lack of speed. With no sequels ever produced, the only other racing game that Core Design ever produced was BC Racers in 1994. Now let's look at what the gaming press had to say about Jaguar XJ220 when they first reviewed it on release. On the whole, Jaguar XJ220 received a warm reception from reviewers, earning an average score of 87.6% from the 7 reviews that I found. There's only one place that I can start though when it comes to taking a closer look at what was said. Amiga Action magazine snapped up the rights to the exclusive review, and that appeared in their June 1992 issue. Spread across 4 pages, this review claimed that the game set new standards for racing games, completely eclipsing everything that had come before it. As you'd expect, it took pole position on the Racing Game Super League and earned a whopping final score of 98%. I remember this being pretty controversial at the time, as it was the highest score ever given by a UK games magazine. In the following years, no other game would ever equal it either. For that same month, CU Amiga's review also appeared, and the reviewer was similarly impressed, although they only scored it 90%. Even the usually stingy Amiga Power gave it 85% in their review. It was a really quite fabulous product. The lowest scores that it received on release were the 83% scores that it received from both Amiga Computing and Amiga Format, and these were the only 2 reviews that considered the game to be worse than Gremlins Lotus 2. One thing that all reviews agreed on though was that the included track editor was a brilliant addition, being both easy to use and capable of creating decent tracks to race on. Now it's time for the playtest, and it's time for me to see which, if any, of these reviews I agree with. Right, okay, let's have a look at Jaguar then and see what we get. This is the first thing that you see when you load it up. It comes to the menu screen, which is extremely similar to the Lotus menu screen. The game really does make no attempt to try and disguise where its inspiration came from, but it's got a lot of different options on here. You can enter your name, which I've already done. You can switch between joystick or mouse control, automatic or manual gears, and fire button or up on the joystick to accelerate. What this has that Lotus doesn't know is a sensitivity option. I like to leave it on sensitivity number 2, and if I hit that Jaguar at the top, that will change it to 2-player split screen, but I'm going to play this on my own. So let's hit exit and get going. So then you get your in-car CD player, which is where you get to choose between music or sound effects. Always something that annoys me, especially in this case, as you have 6 pieces of music that you could have playing, all of which are excellent in their own way. But if you have music playing as you race, you can't hear what the car's doing, and that's kind of important. So very disappointing. So every country in the game has 3 circuits to race on, but before you get to the point where you can choose your destination, you have to race through the 3 England circuits. You can instantly tell that there is a great combination here of the 3D and the sprites. They combine pretty well to make a good sense of speed all round. I think the amount of information that's displayed on screen is a little bit disappointing, because you don't really get to see the speed, because it's not massive other than that little tiny number in the bottom right hand corner. There's a few too many instances in this game for my liking where you're barreling along the road at high speed with no idea as to whether or not you're catching up to anybody, and it's just a completely empty road. There's no other cars anywhere to be seen. Makes it all feel a little bit empty. Between races you get this garage screen, which you can either control with your mouse or joystick, where you can cycle through the different areas of the car. Unfortunately, this has got nothing to do with upgrades, this is merely repair. So very English weather off the second track, got some fog. You will notice that in amongst all the roadside scenery, this game does put in the logos for many of the games magazines that were around at the time. For some reason, the Amiga Action logo, first time it appears, is on this level where you can't really see it because of the fog. being a writer for Amiga Action, that always felt like a little bit of a slap in the face. Outbreaks of rain, producing slippery track conditions. Now you'd think the road surface being wet would make the car handling a little bit more slippy and slidey, but it doesn't. The car handles in exactly the same way it did on a dry track. I do like the graphics for the rain effect though, because it does get more torrential throughout the race. Weirdly, there doesn't seem to be any consequence for only coming 7th place in a race. I mean, no matter what position I seem to be in the championship at the end of these 3 races, I don't get a game over message. The game still allows me to carry on. It's just one of a number of odd design choices in this game. Oh my god, some other cars! Although they've appeared from behind me, not in front. So I now have 67,000 to spend on my next destination, so where shall we go? We have Egypt, Switzerland, USA, Canada, Japan. How much to go to the USA? USA will cost me 20,000. Let's go to the USA. Semi-desert track with large expanses of rocky terrain. Watch out for tumbleweed. This is definitely a little bit more colourful straight away. Go. Oh, but everything seems to have gone grey already. I'm not even round the first lap yet. There's definitely slightly better AI in this game than there is in Lotus. The cars don't just weave from left to right like they do on that one. They do actually seem to actively try and stop you from overtaking them. So I think that's a good place to end the playtest. Jaguar XJ220 is definitely a better game than I remember from the last time that I played it. Graphics are uniformly excellent, although I did find that for an arcade racer, the colours were a little bit muted. Roadside detail is presented in dull greens and browns, and it ruins the overall effect, especially if you view it alongside not just the Lotus trilogy, but also the likes of Crazy Cars 3 and F17 Challenge. The weather effects do look great though, with a real difference between a light drizzle and a full-on downpour. It's just a shame that all they really do is hamper your vision, as they don't seem to affect the car's handling in any way. Most of the game's flaws are minor ones, such as items on the hood not being clear enough, some of the earlier tracks being a little bit too long, and the loading times. I also thought that the lack of an on-screen indicator to tell you how far ahead or behind the nearest rivals were to be a major oversight. Being able to choose the soundtrack from your in-car CD player is always a nice touch, and one that was stolen from Outrun and the first Lotus, but unfortunately you're not going to get to hear most of the tunes, as I feel like this is a game that has to be played with the sound effects turned on, as it's kind of important to be able to hear when your tyres are squealing on corners to let you know that you have to ease off the accelerator. It felt to me like the difficulty balance was a little bit off as well, as unless you catch up to the lead cars on the first lap, you're probably never going to have a chance of seeing them. Consequently, I found that the fun that I was having did diminish slightly with each subsequent race. Thankfully, the inclusion of a save game option is a godsend in this regard. The game positively invites you to compare it directly to the Lotus games, and as you can see from the Arcade Racing Super League, I would place it below the first 2 games, but above the third one, as it's definitely a better game than Lotus 3, especially when it comes to the track editor. For me, it's a solid 7 out of 10, which is a bit of a step down from its original scores, but I can see why reviewers were so impressed with it in 1992 from a technical standpoint. Thank you for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this new style of re-review. I'll be back to looking at one of my own reviews in 2 weeks' time for our 50th episode. For the next viewer choice episode, you'll be able to vote on what game I cover, starting from Monday, and you'll be able to choose between the shooters Battle Squadron or Stardust. If you want to have your say and have me play your favourite, please do consider becoming one of our VIP members. The link to tell you how to do that will be in the video description. All opinions expressed in this video are entirely mine, although I would like to hear yours in the comments. If you enjoy this series, please do give us a like and subscribe to show YouTube that you do. And if you've missed any of the previous episodes, there should be a link on screen about now to the full playlist. Until next time, happy retro gaming. Bye for now.